Welcome to the Rock and Roll Ghost podcast. This week we have musician Randy Schrager, who's the drummer in Jesse Malin's band. They're celebrating the new album, Sad and Beautiful World. Do I have that right?
That's it.
Okay. For some reason, as I was saying it, I thought I had it wrong. They've been able to go on tour a little bit. They were just in the UK and Europe. So basically, let's start out with how you doing today, and Randy, and you're in New York, right?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm in New York. I've been back home now for about 2 weeks. I think
Yeah,
I'm finally getting back on the clock.
yeah,
Back
yeah,
back on Eastern Standard Time clock.
yeah. How was it to finally get back out on the road in a serious manner after almost 2 years off?
I mean, it was fantastic, and especially to do it in the UK and Europe. Uh, to leave the United States and fly overseas and play. Especially they're not experiencing too many American artists and bands coming through just yet. I mean, it's just starting to happen. So yeah, it was super exciting to be able to go out and play and travel, and
Yeah,
especially even sweeter to do it over there. You know, uh,
gotcha.
see some different things rather than your typical United States tour.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Stops
Where
and
every town has the same crap.
right, right. It was
You
cool.
guys do pretty. Sorry.
It was incredible. It was a good time. Really good.
Yeah, you guys do really well over there. You're received probably. I mean, I know you. Jesse has a pretty good following here, but I think it seems like his appeal is even stronger overseas. Is that what you kind of find?
Yeah, uh, yeah, I do. There's, I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, there's a fan base over there that's different from over here, and he does really well over there. And in certain cities over there, even better than as the whole. But I mean, I guess that's every artist. They have their pockets and their areas of the world where they're super popular, you know, um, and and where they're not as much. And yeah, it's more fun to play. More fun to play for the most people, I guess, if you can. And yeah, he does really good there. There's some big shows over there, so
Yeah.
a lot of fun to play. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's been building a base now for a while. His solo career has been so different than what he did previously from the punk days or the degeneration days. So it's been really interesting, and it's been really interesting to see, how everything has kind of gone for him, where it seems like he just keeps getting more and more recognition. And you've been with the band for how long now?
I've been playing with Jesse for quite a while. I guess in this current stretch, I started to play with Jesse again after some time off in 2013.
Okay,
So um, yeah, so what is that now? Eight
8 years.
years, and then
Yeah,
before that, I made a record with Jesse before. The very first record I made with Jesse. I didn't really tour it all that much, but we played some gigs, and we played the music out a little bit before I had to leave to. I was committed to another project at the time. Um, but yeah, so this stretch now is about 8 years. It's been a
yeah,
while. Um, People come in and out, but I've been there for eight.
yeah. Well, it seems like except for the bass player, the bass position, you, Randy, not you, Randy, Rob and Derek have been in it pretty long together.
Yeah, we have Derek and I especially. I mean, Derek was there when I came in 2013,
Yeah,
and he was more of like the auxiliary, uh, member of the group, covering a lot of production-y stuff, keys and percussion and whatnot. And he plays everything. and he's now, playing lead guitar or guitar, I guess lead you can say,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, at least on stage. But yeah, and Rob on keys was playing with Jesse super early on.
Right. Yeah, he's kind of come in and out.
Yeah, and kind of has been back uh, with this current lineup now for a little while. And we've made the last few records together, at least
Yeah.
last two, I think.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and Rob, I remember from years ago too. Different incarnations, and there's been God, there's been so many different people, and it's it's good to see like a pretty cohesive lineup for the last couple, and now you got James Cruz on bass,
Yeah,
who seems to be doing really well.
yeah,
He seems to have gelled pretty well with the band.
yeah, yeah. We like James. I love playing with James, and he's on this record, as well as Catherine. She's on the newest record too, because it was made over a period of time.
Right,
But yeah, all the live stuff has been with James on stage.
right. Yeah, and Catherine was in the band until pretty much the pandemic, right? Or was she
Yeah.
not on that UK tour when you guys had
Oh,
to come back?
actually, yeah, she made the previous record with Jesse,
Yeah,
Sunset Kids, but
yeah.
she she started trickling out, um, kind of leaving. She played some of the gigs when the record was out, but then she moved over to more just staying at home in New York, working.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
For some reason, I thought she had the. I know that she has like I personally thought that she left when the pandemic hit for personal health reasons, but I guess what you're saying that
yeah. It was a little bit before that because the
yeah,
last tour we did right before the pandemic was in the UK, and James was on bass.
yeah, okay,
So yeah, he came in right as Sunset Kids was kind of getting going, and we were playing
gotcha.
more songs. Yeah.
How do you find? I mean, what is the feeling like on tour? Do you guys all kind of hang out together? Do you go your kind of like spread out when you're
We have
not?
no choice. Yeah, we have no choice. We're in that van together
Yeah,
from right after checkout in the hotel until we get to the next hotel at night. Yeah, no, of course we hang out. We're it being the type of tour, being a van tour, and we do have a lot of nights on your typical Jesse Malin tour. We don't take a lot of days to just go sightseeing and chill. Uh, but
right.
yeah, we do. We grab meals, and we're in the van. If we're not on our headphones, maybe I would say before the coffee kicks in, we have our headphones on, and then as we're waking up a little more, we all start to talk. There's a magazine around. There's always conversation. There's uh, listening to music, listening to a podcast or an interview or some radio show, or just bullshitting.
Yeah, yeah,
We're there. We're pretty tight on the road, but it's important to take space and go for a walk sometimes.
yeah, yeah. Like get to the theater, you have a little bit of time, you just do a couple of block walk. I would imagine, and just see what's
Oh,
going on.
yeah, that's important for
Uh,
me. Yeah, that's important. Yeah.
is it difficult to go to all these cities across the world and not really have time to be a tourist? Do you wish like you just God? I wish I had one day.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you really got to stuff a lot of things in the short period of time that you might have free that day. And if you get lucky that you have a day off in such and such a place, then I mean, I like to look ahead and see where I'm going to be. I'll open up TripAdvisor and I'll look at the top things, or stuff I might know about already, or a museum I might want to go see, or maybe sometimes you just want to sit in your room and read a book and chill.
Yeah,
So it all depends. But yeah, especially in Europe, where you're traveling through. I mean, we were in Paris for less than 24 hours.
right.
I would have liked to have had a little more time over there, and in other places too. But it is what it is. We're there
Yeah.
to play first and foremost. So everything else is just a little extra. It's a bonus, I guess.
Yeah. Is there anything that you have been able to see that really made you happy that you were able to do it while you had the time?
Hmm. I mean, God, I want to say on this last tour, I just like walking around and looking at the architecture in different
Hmm.
in different cities and taking photos. I can't remember anything on this most recent run where I was like, "Oh, finally, I made it." Um, it's been a while. We didn't get to Barcelona, but we're going, I think, in the spring,
Hmm.
22. And then I like to go inside that Gaudi church, which has been for like
Yeah.
100 years plus or something.
Oh, I would love to see that.
Yeah. So that when I first saw that back in the 2010, the aughts, I think it was, I went in '07. Um, yeah, mind blowing. So if you can fit stuff like that in, it's always inspirational, and you take that
Yeah.
on stage uh, that night usually, or the following day, or whenever, just it helps. It's inspirational for sure.
Yeah. What's the strangest thing that is very American that you happen to discover over in another country? Like, I mean, a type of food or I don't know, but chip or like or something, something that just is very American that you didn't think translated. Is there anything you could think of like that? This
Uh,
question just popped into my head, and I figured maybe you might have an
the
example.
only thing popping into my head is seeing fast food joints, American fast food joints in other countries, but that's not inspirational or nice to see.
No.
So I'm trying to think of like, man, you know, when I want to say within the last few years, maybe before the pandemic, the craft beer thing
Okay.
had been like exploding more and more, and then seeing that type of type of stuff in certain cities in England was interesting to me. I'm not a craft beer person, but seeing like a Brooklyn brewery like over there was like, oh, this is
Right.
interesting. Um,
That's
but
a
they
pretty good
are,
example, actually. Yeah, because it's
yeah,
like, yeah, you wouldn't think they would be that receptive to certain things like that.
right, yeah, that's kind of exploding around the world
Yeah.
now. So,
Globalization. We're embracing everything.
right,
I
right,
would hope. I'd
of
like to see a little more embracing of other culture in this country, but we'll see.
course, yeah,
Well, the younger kid, I say the younger kids being an old fart now, really do have a multicultural global desire. Really, they like going everywhere. They like traveling to different places. They like getting something regional.
yeah,
So they're much more, I think, with it than I could ever remember being at that age. Hell, I didn't get into alternative music until I was out of high school practically. So it's like, and that was in the late 80s. It's like
hmm
I was discovering James Addiction and the Replacements when I was graduating. So it's like,
don't you wish you would have found it sooner? Like when you find that stuff, you're like, man, like, why didn't I find this sooner?
yeah, I've never been cool. I've always found everything after it was cool. The only time it aligned was grunge. Like I got into that specific frame of the alternative scene at that moment, and that was it.
Yeah, me too.
I
Me too.
it's like I've never been cool enough to be on the edge. Like my ex-wife went to this famous all ages dance club called Medusa's here in Chicago. Like, and I didn't even know it existed until years after it closed. But it's
Mm.
like Ministry would perform there. All these, they would just have all these people come in and perform, and it was like and I literally had never heard of it. So that's
Bummer.
how
Yeah,
uncool
yeah.
I was.
Sometimes you're under your own little rock,
Yeah, yeah,
and that's just the way it goes. And when you do find out about that thing or that music or whatever, it kind of almost triggers you in a way that like, oh, I missed out on this, and now I have to get extra into it, and I have to
Yeah,
really dig into it, and
yeah,
that's sometimes the way you find stuff, and
yeah,
that's the way you were meant to find it, I guess. But
yeah.
yeah,
I like that. I definitely like the fact that I can still discover things.
Mhm.
I'm not, you're never too old to find out about something. So,
True. Yeah, yeah.
you know,
It's always great when new stuff. If I can find something new that really turns me on, it's like a blessing, because you feel as you get older, there's less and less of that, but you discover that it's still there. It's still
yeah,
there.
yeah. Oh, there's infinities of stuff that I have no idea about. I realize I am, in not the worst meaning of the word, but I realize how ignorant I am the older I get. Is that there are so many things I don't know, so which is probably rare. Most people probably think that you've got everything figured out as they get older, and yeah, I know I'll never figure it all out.
It's the opposite, right? The opposite.
So, recording the new album, getting back to music, "Sad and Beautiful World" was kind of like a different experience for you guys. You had done a bunch of it before the shutdown, and then you found ways to kind of, when you could go in, record here, record there, do this, do that. And it basically became like you almost had one album before the shutdown. And so you guys were, he was putting out different singles. The whole time you guys were doing the live shows.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
what how did that whole process work itself out?
Um, we made the record mostly at Flux Studios, which is in the East Village, and it's literally like a diagonal across from where Jesse lives, um, on Avenue. Well, I won't say where. Uh, so we would be in and out of there. Yeah, I think we we were doing all those live streams, which were life saving at the time. I started to leave my apartment after just not going anywhere for a while. We started to take these live gigs like on a weekly basis mostly, and then sometimes we would take some time off, and so we would get into the studio and just, hey, come in. We're gonna do 2 days at Flux, and I don't keep track very well of what goes down in the studio. I kind of just lose track. Well, he likes to maybe cover when it's Jesse likes to cover about 2-3 songs a day. Like if we can get two or three in a day, like the take, then that's great, and let's build on it. Overdubs and whatnot. But if we can get the basics in a day, and so yeah, all these little sessions that we were doing. By the time he's like, yeah, I think we have a double album. I was like, really? That's
Yeah.
because I wasn't even sure how many we had recorded. I did know how many we did record beforehand that didn't make Sunset Kids, um, and I knew what songs were left over and were put on the newest record. But
Mhm.
by the time all the others were finished, I mean, I didn't know because there's just so many songs. There's more songs than make the record. As you know,
Yeah.
people write and record, and then the best stuff, you hope, makes the record.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a bit of a blur, Brett, to be honest, because you go in and then you might not get back in there for another month and
Mhm.
record some more songs or whatever. Or hey, we dug up this thing that we did a while back. Your drums are already done on it, but we're gonna take it into the studio and rework it, and that happens a lot too.
Yeah.
Older stuff that's like has a newer approach or is rewritten and maybe chopped up a little bit with the help of Pro Tools or whatever. Um, so songs come out like that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. How does it typically? How does your part come in? Jesse obviously will come in with a demo of some sort, I would imagine. Does it go through him and Derek first and then the band, or how does that work?
Um, well, if it's a co-write with him and Derek, they've been
Right.
working on it, and they'll bring it in. Or if it's just Jesse, he'll bring it in. And usually, the way things happen for me, one of two ways. The first way being there are no drums, there's nothing. It's a song idea that Jesse will bring it into rehearsal, and he's just gonna tape it on his phone, and he's like, "Let's just play it down, and whatever you feel like you hear, let's just hit it."
Mm.
Like you would. You want to get hit with that initial inspiration. You don't want to be thinking too much. You don't want to put anything in a box, and you don't want to restrict anything because you want something magical to happen when it comes to any recording, really. So it's generally that he'll bring it in and he'll tape it on his phone, and then he goes home and he listens, and he's like, "Hey, I really like what you did here." Oh my god, it's literally like we'll record these things at rehearsal, and then he'll start texting out the voice memos to everybody, and it's like a ridiculous amount of texts that you start
Mm.
getting. Your phone just starts going crazy, and he's like, "I like this take," or "I like this take," and then so before the next rehearsal, there's a little bit of a talk, and it's like, "Hey, that vibe that happened on this such and such a run through, let's do that more, or let's follow that a little bit." Um, and then Derek too, like Derek being one of the co-producers on the record, he's like, "I like what you did on this. Let's develop that more." The other thing is that let's say there's already like a programmed beat, and that's a Derek thing because when they're writing, they like to usually write. Derek likes to program stuff,
Mm.
and then I'm just kind of developing a program thing and making it more human and putting my own thing in there, which just happens. It's like if I'm gonna play something that's a super static pattern, unless somebody's saying like play it exactly like that, it's just gonna develop the way I play. It's just gonna start to
Right.
sound like me. Uh, so yeah, that's generally how it happens. A lot of drummers will tell you it's like we kind of produce ourselves. We're always listening and honing and doing this and doing this, and then the outside voices are like, do more of that, do more of this, or do less of
Right.
that, less of that. It's a real collaboration, um,
Mm.
which is nice in the Malin situation to be able to bring something to the table creatively, you know.
Yeah.
Or-
Do you do you find it being a drummer that by way of you talking about the directions you get, do you find that when other musicians probably have the least understanding of drums in terms of sound, in terms of being able to express what they're looking for?
Hmm. You know, sometimes everybody's different. I feel like nowadays where everybody's making home recordings and demos and this, and there's so much like knowledge on the internet about drum sounds and recording techniques, a lot of people come in with a good amount of knowledge, and they could tell you what they're hearing or what they want to hear. um, but it's been rare these days to bump into somebody that really doesn't know what they're talking about. What they're
Okay.
talking about. It happens, sure, on like a
Right.
random session or whatnot, and then that's when you're grateful that the producer's there or somebody else is there to kind of translate or just be the bridge between like the songwriter and the musician, the session musician in that scenario. Um, so yeah, it runs the gamut of like I like to hear, and they'll sing a beat, and then or other people are just like, yeah, I want to crush this mic and compress this thing, and then, ooh, I want to hear a lot of the room mics on this song, or it's like it's everywhere, it's everywhere
Yeah.
in between.
Yeah. I don't know why I kind of had it in my head that and maybe it's from before modern technology that like other musicians used to just kind of have like not as much of an understanding of how a drummer goes about doing what he does. Like sometimes I think they just is, uh, would look for just like a human drum sampler, from back in the days, like, just do this, don't deviate, or whatever, because they don't understand. But because it's rare for a drummer to uh become out, make their presence known outside of the other musicians. People like John Bonham or Keith Moon or Jimmy Chamberlain from the Smashing Pumpkins, where it's like it's like you could really tell, or Neil Peart with Rush, just you could really tell that there's something more happening than just,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, those drummers were lucky in, when it is different being in a band and playing, supporting an artist and
yeah,
being in the band. Although there's a bit of a mix in the Jesse world because the band has been the band for a while,
yeah,
and yeah, there's a trust that comes with that. That he could say, "Oh, I trust what you're gonna do," but yeah, a lot of it starts in that simple place of
yeah,
just let me play a beat and let's let the song, do its thing, and then all the personal stuff and all the isms in my playing will kind of
yeah,
come out. But um, and it's different for everybody. I mean, really, I still have to dial it down, in the Jesse Malin band,
yeah,
because I come from a different background than playing, a lot of the stuff that we do, which is becoming more and more like Americana. Um,
right,
it's creeping over into there, and yeah, I was listening to a lot of with prog and grunge growing up, and a lot of jazz, and probably I'm always trying to play less when it
mm,
comes to playing in the Jesse Malin stuff. Um, but yeah, hopefully things develop, and yeah, it sounds personal. I hope it does. I mean, I am playing pretty simple on some stuff on the record, but
well, that wasn't my point necessarily with you. I was just saying that in general speaking, that you'll have a lot of bands that it just sounds like, the drummer could be anybody. It's just like, it's just a beat, it's a snare, a hi-hat, a snare, a hi-hat, maybe a crash, and maybe occasionally a ride, and it's like it might as well not be someone human behind it. But with Jesse's music, and especially your drumming, since you've been on with the albums and stuff, Jesse's music in general, for me, all I don't know how, for 20 years now he's been able to come up with more and more music that I love, and it is so different from everything else. It's such a particular voice, but your drumming in particular I've always admired, because of that fact that there's not like, some bands will have five songs that sound like the same five songs, and whereas you guys, you're doing, every song sounds completely different from the last one. They all have their own personality. Every one of you kind of puts their own stamp on it. Jesse, is kind of like the constant in terms of singing, depending on the style of song. But that's what I like about the band in particular, is that you guys all sound like, you're doing something different all over the place,
that,
and it's not the same thing every song, necessarily.
yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, it's a testament to him and trusting us and wanting it to sound like not like it could be anybody. That's why he
Right.
keeps having the same people
Yeah.
around, you know. Uh, and that changes too when you start getting out there and playing the songs in front of people. They develop as well, um, and songs develop differently when there are different people playing live than might have played on the record.
Mhm.
Now, it's there's so many different scenarios, but it's always nice to be able to play on a record and then go out and play that material live because it keeps changing and it keeps
Yeah.
growing. You know, you almost wish like, oh, I kind of wish I would have done that on going into the second chorus on the album, but oh well.
Yeah.
Album,
Yeah.
you know. But then,
that's a good thing about playing music is that even though the essential, unless you're Bob Dylan, where you remake every song now,
right?
the song essentially stays the same, but the nuances change.
Yeah, yeah, and that's important for us too to be able to, like I said, get into the rehearsal room and play the stuff for a while before we go into the studio and record it. And then even then, maybe we don't get the song in a day and we move on and we come back to it a week, 2 weeks later on another
Right.
session after listening and then maybe after another rehearsal and it's different and it's in a
Mhm.
better place. And yeah, hopefully it comes out on that record. And I'm glad you noticed. It's nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just it's I keep worrying like a lot of my favorite artists. I can think of people like especially from the '90s, like artists like Smashing Pumpkins and Wilco, who I used to be insane about, like just true fan, fanatic thing. And then they each got to a point where they started making albums I didn't really care about necessarily, or not as much as I did the other stuff. And I was like, well, I don't know how this happened. And with Jesse, it's been 20 years now, practically each album I love. Probably the only album I could ever critique a
Mhm.
bit is the one you can't find anywhere, and that's the one he did on Billy Joe's label, the one with
Glitter. You're talking about glitter in
Glitter
the
in the
gut.
Gutter, yeah. Which I just thought had too many um, cameos, I guess you could say. I mean, felt it was a little overproduced, but other than that, I love those songs.
Record. I think he calls it his LA.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and but I just think that it's got a little more sheen on it than he needs. You know what I mean? Uh,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
but every other, it's not even that I don't like it. It's probably if you're gonna pick one album out of all of them, I like at the bottom. That would probably be it, only because and also because I can't seem to ever listen to it. My CD of it is in storage and it's not on Spotify, so
It's not. Yeah, I guess not. I guess it's on that label. I guess they haven't figured it out on how to.
yeah. That was a brief period with what was it, Adeline or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
That was before my
But
time.
anyways, my point being is that I keep loving everything that he comes. In fact, I like the new album. I love Sunset Kids, but I like the new album even more than I like Sunset Kids. And what's interesting is that there wasn't the same kind of focus like there was with Sunset Kids, where he went in with oh my god, why am I blanking? Lucinda and
That's
Tom
awesome.
Overby, where they kind of were, them and Derek and you guys, kind of crafted an album uh,
Yeah.
a bit. This one was a little more scattershot, but for me, it feels almost even more cohesive. However, that you know, maybe to somebody else it wouldn't, but for me, it sounds like a very cohesive album.
Well, like you said earlier, and like we mentioned, I mean, it's the same band, you know.
Yeah.
Whether it's like from the Lucinda and Tom thing of like, oh, we're gonna do this more Americana vibe, or not. Oh, Jesse also wrote some songs with Rob, on keys on this new record, and there's a lot of
Mm.
cool piano based like stuff that starts on piano or at the piano sonically. That's like kind of different. I feel like
Mm.
some of the things he's recorded in the past, and yeah, it's super refreshing. And yeah, even though it comes from all these different stylistic places, yeah, it's pretty cohesive, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me talk a little bit about your past. You mentioned being a fan of prog and jazz and stuff like that. What was it about? I mean, when did you get into music to begin with? Were drums your first instrument, and what were your early musical in terms of listening and playing? What
Yeah.
was all that like?
Well, my first instrument was actually piano, and I started taking piano lessons when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, I started young. There was just a piano in the house, and both I have a one sibling, an older brother, who's just 2.5 years older. We both were taking piano lessons, but he was the one who eventually quit. and I stuck with it. And then I found the drums, like, I picked it as my instrument
Mm.
when in the fourth grade. You're like, what instrument do you want to play? Up until then, I thought I wanted to play guitar.
Yeah.
uh, but you couldn't play guitar in school.
Yeah.
So I picked the drums, and I thought it was cool. I would see the marching bands, and the drums were just such a cool sound. Um, so yeah, there were always kind of little toy drums around, and so I really started getting into the drums at that time, and I started in school just playing snare drum. Uh,
Mm.
until and the teachers are always like, you can't get a drum set until you figure this out. And uh, I did get a drum set, I think the summer going into the sixth grade. I came home from used to go away to summer camp, and I came home one summer and there was a drum set in my room. It was
Wow.
um, but popular music on the radio was like how just kind of first started noticing music, just what was on when I was sitting in the back seat of the car in the
Mm.
80s, like in the early 80s. And my dad had a few records, LPs dubbed onto cassette for the car. Uh, and Born in the USA was one of them. And we listened to that just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, just constantly. I knew every song on
Mm.
USA, and I didn't know that Bruce Springsteen had another record. I didn't
Yeah.
know, like, when you're that young, that these people have other records. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, Born in the USA. That's so cool. It's its own thing. That was the record. He had a Fleetwood Mac record in the car, um, and my parents really liked Neil Diamond. Great songs.
Yeah, in the end, looking back, like my memory of Neil Diamond as a kid is completely different as an adult because it's like, oh, there was some cool stuff that wasn't all spangly and go
Yeah.
to America and all that nonsense.
Right. Totally, totally, totally. Uh, but then, like I said, I have an older brother, and he started bringing tapes home
Mm.
when I guess, as he got older, he started bringing tapes home, and he was bringing home Metallica tapes. He was bringing home Motley Crue tapes, um, Van Halen stuff, which was always around. I really always remember hearing, because Van Halen was like on the radio.
You're right, right.
I remember hearing Jump on the radio, and then I remember when David Lee Roth went solo. I remember hearing Roth stuff on the radio. Um, so I was into like that music, like the '80s rock stuff and the metal stuff until grunge came along,
Right.
and and then those records kind of flipped everybody out. And like we were saying earlier, I was, I got in, when the door opened, kind of like 1990, 91, when all that stuff was coming out. And, we got, when I say we, like me and my friends, we got Nevermind, we got uh, Pearl Jam's first record, the Pumpkins records, Blind Melon was like really a big record for me because these were records that I was hearing drummers. I was hearing more nuance in the drum department than you
Right.
were on, like, let's say, like Dr. Feelgood by Motley Crue, which is like a grooving ass record. Tommy Lee is like such a grooving ass drummer, but you don't hear all these little ghost notes that you might hear on like Pearl Jam 10, uh,
Right.
or that first Blind Melon record, or Siamese Dream, where there's all this like stuff going on, and it really opened my ears up at that time. And this is before I got into jazz, but at that point I'm getting more into drumming, and like
Mm.
really just digging into drums. And that's what kind of led me to prog and jazz, because you're studying an instrument, and I was following it into every kind of musical style I could, just because I wanted to know about the drums. I wanted to learn about the drums. So it was less about a genre thing, and more about, oh, if you want to kind of grow on this instrument, you should check out this music, and you should check that out. And like, oh, the dude up the drummer up the street is sounding better. Like, what are you doing? It's like, oh, I've gotten into jazz. So,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So now I know you need to go get into jazz, and I need to go study with this. Lessons were a big part of it too. So, you know, I was very fortunate. My folks were real supportive in that aspect where, you know, they got me drum lessons. I took
Yeah.
one lesson, maybe two lessons with two different teachers a week from by the when I was 10 until I left for college until I was 18, and then I went and studied music. I went and studied jazz at the University of Miami. We're jumping. We're really flying through the timeline here, aren't we?
No, that's cool. That's cool.
uh,
Where did you grow up?
so I grew up in the suburbs of, excuse me, in New York City, in the suburbs of the city in Rockland
Okay.
County. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're in Chicago, right? So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have some East Coast knowledge, but I've never actually been to New York. So
okay.
I mean, I
Well,
have the knowledge that everybody does because New York is so prevalent. I know Long Island, I know Staten Island, Brooklyn. I mean, I know the boroughs and all that stuff. And
I
if you go pretty much on the other side of the bridge into Jersey, it's Hoboken. So you
yeah.
know,
So if you were to cross into New Jersey and then go north into New York State, the southernmost county on the western side of the Hudson in New York State is Rockland, and
gotcha.
it's only I'm in Astoria, Queens now. It's like less than it's probably 25 miles up there. It's not far.
Yeah,
So I was lucky. We had New York City to come down to and see shows and go to concerts and whatnot.
mhm.
But yeah, I grew up in the suburbs and I had that suburban kind of experience growing up. Um, but yeah, everybody, we came in, when I say we, the Schragers came in uh, to New York City and we kind of never left the area. We came on the boat in whenever we came and we've been here, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Why did you decide on University of Miami?
Um, my grandmother was living in Florida at the time,
Okay.
and I was like, that'd be nice to. It was part of it, but my grandmother was living in Florida, and Miami was the first school I went to check out when I was in high school. I kind of saw it before I even started thinking about college. I didn't wasn't my head wasn't in school at all. I
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
into like going to college. I didn't even know that you could go to music school, but my parents knew, and they wanted to make sure that I got a college education, and they were
mhm,
like, "You should go drive down to the University of Miami one day," and we did,
yeah,
and then it was one of the schools that I auditioned at um, when it came time to start looking into going to music schools, and I had a really helpful high school band director who was real supportive. She knew about Miami. She knew about the musicians that came out of there, um, and she recommended it. So I did, audition and get into like Manhattan School of Music and other schools like Indiana University or Ithaca. Like, man, but Miami is just the combination of the weather. Uh, the school was super cool. I actually got a scholarship to go there, which when you don't have to pay for college, that's nice. And
yeah, yeah,
it helps the decision making process. It takes it another step further. Um, and the fact that like, oh, and my grandmother lives an hour away, and I can go see her every so often, and it was just a combination of all that stuff. I had such
yeah,
a good time down there. I really liked going to school there, and like from going from not even wanting to go to college to really digging it, and so glad that I did do that, and I did get that education. You meet all these fantastic musicians. And I have a network of people that I still, talk to and play with. Um,
right.
it's interesting. The Jesse gig, yeah, in such and such a roundabout way. The Jesse gig, I wouldn't have gotten a call from him had I not met such and such, and before that met such and such a person because of a University of Miami connection. It goes
Yeah.
back that far. So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's pretty
a different
wild.
experience than maybe going to school in the Northeast or in the city. You know, doing the legit like, oh, go to school in Manhattan and study jazz, and it's different for sure because you get right into it. Uh,
Right.
Maybe that's why I don't play jazz professionally now, is because uh, I, I I did go to school down there, and we covered a lot more than just your typical, recording and studio stuff, and all the genres are much more kind of looked at equally than I would say maybe just straight ahead like bebop would have been if
Hmm.
I'd gone to Manhattan School of Music or something like that.
Gotcha. Um, what what were some of your actual like bands, or were what your gigs, or who you played with? I mean, what is your kind of your resume for like for playing out live with other people or recording with other people? With like, if you could just kind of give me an idea of some of the people you've worked with in the past.
Oh wow! Like professionally or before
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. Mostly professional. Yeah.
um, well, maybe I can work backwards, man. It's a long list, but
Or
so
just highlights,
I
whatever.
play with Jesse, and I'm also currently playing with a really good friend of mine. His name's Gabe Dixon. He plays keyboards and sings.
Okay.
He's been a member of Tedeschi Trucks band for a couple of years now.
Okay.
Um, I haven't yet recorded any music with Gabe, although we've recorded some live things. Uh, so he comes from that world. I've been playing lately with a guitar player singer named Jamie McLean. He's based here in New York City, uh, and I would say that's more bluesy, New Orleans influenced kind of stuff. The gig I was doing before I started to play with Jesse again in 2013, I was playing with a band called Scissor Sisters. You
Oh
probably,
yeah.
yeah. That band hasn't played a show and kind of went on like a unofficial hiatus slash it's probably going to never happen again kind of move like at the end of
Yeah.
2012. Nobody really knew, but that's the way it's gone.
Yeah.
uh, and that was probably my first big touring and recording experience outside of smaller bands that were kind of up and coming or maybe almost got signed and maybe didn't.
Yeah.
I was a band guy before I became this drummer for hire, for lack of a better term, or session guy,
Right.
I'll say. I always wanted to be in a band for that reason of just like that collaborative, creative spirit and less of a paint by numbers kind of musician. So it's nice to still be able to, like I said, feel that band vibe in a hired situation. Uh, God, I made a record with Carly Rae Jepsen that never came out. I don't you remember her? So that,
Yeah.
yeah, all sorts of different stuff. It was like an indie pop record that she just shelved and did a whole completely different record and put something else out.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. There's all these different. There's a lot of independent sessions and singer songwriter stuff that comes in, but it's a lot of it's indie. I'm actually in the midst of like making a new website and getting this
Yeah.
stuff up there, uh, and making a playlist of just every song. I mean, I've been looking around to find out what I've played on that's on streaming. Pretty much it's all on the streaming. So I'm thinking
Yeah.
about doing like a from past to present, just every track. It'll be up there soon.
I
Maybe not
got
by
you.
the time this is up, but
Yeah.
yeah.
That'd be cool. Well, I'll still have if you've got any social media stuff, I'll still post
Yeah,
if people to
totally.
keep an eye on. All right. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but what outside of music kind of ignites any passions in you? Do you have any hobbies or anything like that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I do like photography. I've been getting more into to just taking photos that um, turn me on, and that's pretty inspirational. Um, I'm a I'm a reader. I like reading books.
Yeah.
Lately, I skipped it all when I was growing up because my head was stuck in a drum book, you know, when I was playing,
Mm.
practicing. But a lot of my hobbies just center around creativity. Like now that I'm kind of off the road, I want to sit at the piano more and practice piano. I want to pick up the guitar more and play guitar and get better at playing these other instruments, and recording some stuff of my own, using, just playing all sorts of different stuff, which I have done in the past. I do have a recording project, but it's been on the shelf for quite a while. So I'm hoping to get back to that. You could call that a hobby.
Yeah.
My own stuff, right? It's like I
Yeah.
do my own stuff for fun, and then I do everyone else's stuff to make a living.
Right. Right.
But
Uh,
yeah,
yeah. What you don't have to do, you make all your money, well, all, not all, I know, I'm not saying you're wealthy beyond means, I'm saying when you earn your living as a musician, right, you don't have to have like a day gig.
fortunately, I haven't had a day gig since a few years after I graduated college. I was doing a lot of private teaching. I've
Okay.
always tried to do musical stuff. I've had two temp jobs in my life, and they lasted like a week each because I was like, I can't do this. Like back in the day. I mean, back in the days, data entry was like a paid gig.
Yeah.
Um, but it's all been centered around music, luckily, and knock on wood, I don't have a
Yeah.
quote unquote day gig. Not that there's anything wrong with it.
No, but it's kind of, it's not necessarily easy just to make your living as a musician. So yeah, a lot of people I know do. I mean, Jesse talked about when D Generation broke up, he was moving moving people's furniture. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, you do what you do to get by and make the next thing, and still be be creative. Uh,
yeah.
so not yet. I haven't become a mover. I haven't started.
It's,
Uh,
as you get older, it's a little difficult to end up becoming a mover.
yeah, exactly. I'm not
You
sure
know,
what I would do if music wasn't a possibility. I
yeah.
haven't thought about it. I don't let my mind go there.
No,
Because
no, no. Hey,
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I wouldn't either. If I could earn my living doing the things I like doing rather than doing the things I have to do. I wouldn't
right,
be thinking about doing the things I don't want to do either. So,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, fortunately, still going, still out
that's
here.
good. That's good. Well, it's a good thing to be able to do what you love. All right, one final question,
Sure.
and because I asked this question last week to Steve Conte, uh,
Oh,
and
Steve.
he lives in the Bronx and apparently lives near nothing edible. But you're living in Queens, so I know that there's good food in Queens. What are your go-to spots, and like what are they, and what are the dishes you get if you go,
Uh,
like, and
I
anything?
I just got one of my go-to meals. I've been in this neighborhood of Astoria now for I'm in my fifth year.
Yeah,
I've lived in Manhattan before. I've lived in Hoboken before, but over here there's so much. My
it's a
spot,
melting pot.
it
It's a
really
melting pot. Yeah,
it really is. My spot is the falafel truck, like 2 blocks up and 3 blocks over. Like that's my thing. And
yeah.
I get the same thing. I get the falafel platter. I don't eat. I haven't eaten meat in quite a while, so
Oh, you and Jesse are good on that. It's a whole. How
yeah.
much of the band is meat free?
Just Jesse and I.
Okay. All right. Well, thank God you guys have each other.
It helps. It helps when the guy you're out on the road playing with is wants to eat kind of along the lines that you do, and it makes it easier. But I will say that the other guys in the van jump on board and they're cool with it. It's like, yeah, oh, I'm happy to eat this way.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
when we're all together, it's fine. But my falafel truck guy, the veggie Asian spot over here, which just makes like mock meals of meat that I miss. I still
Mm.
get that. But I'm a big home chef, especially
Okay.
after the last after the pandemic. Uh,
Yeah,
I like doing a lot of home cooking, but I keep things pretty simple. I eat
yeah.
pretty simple nowadays, so. But yeah, I'll say it's called the King of Falafel. It's right up it's right up the street.
Okay.
They have a brick and mortar spot, but the truck is over here.
Yeah.
And okay, I can't forget bagels are like huge for me. I'm a gigantic bagel fan.
Oh, there you go.
I bring these bagels. There's a place called the Story of Bagels, and I bring them to my friends in other states when I go see them. Like I went to Atlanta to see the Stones.
Hmm.
Uh, I was lucky. I got home from Europe, and a few days later they were playing in Atlanta, and I was like, I don't want to miss this last run. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I brought a dozen New York Queens bagels to my friend in Atlanta. They were super psyched, but that's always like pretty much the first thing I'm going to eat when I come back to the States to
Yeah.
my neighborhood is to get a bagel.
Yeah. So are you vegetarian or vegan?
I'm a full on plant based vegan nowadays.
Okay, so no schmear.
My schmear will be of the tofu. It will be
Okay.
tofu schmear. It won't be the old school cream cheese
Do they
schmear.
have that at the bagel place, or do you have your own?
Oh, they do. They do.
Yeah.
The spot that I go to, they have a a tofu spread and then a tofu with scallions spread. There's another place that has a bunch of different flavors, but they're popping up more and more so.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, nowadays it's like there's a lot of, there's a lot of cuisines. Like Indian is very, vegetarian or vegan friendly in a lot of cases. But we're living in an era now where it's far more popular or well known, where options are more plentiful than when in the '80s you used to go to a place and say, "Well, I'm a vegetarian. Well, here's a salad."
I
You
could
know?
imagine, yeah, I couldn't imagine how tough it was
Yeah,
back back in the '80s, and even 10 years ago, even
yeah,
5 years ago, uh,
yeah.
to try and eat plant based fully. But yeah, it's much easier nowadays. Yeah, my bagel place luckily has. But if not, I go and I buy the spread at the store and I bring the bagels home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whatever, no big deal.
What path were you on? That obviously you probably ate meat at some point in your time. Did you go from that to vegetarian to vegan,
I
plant
did.
based?
I did. I had a girlfriend for many many years, and she was a vegetarian. We could never share meals if I got a meat meal,
Yeah.
at a restaurant. Uh, so I started eating more vegetarian while we were together. Um, Jesse was actually an influence as well on eating vegetarian and just quitting meat. So yeah, I kind of stopped eating beef and pork first, and then everything else just kind of filtered out
Yeah.
and stopped. I eventually would just get rid of this, get rid of that, get rid of that, and then the final thing, the last thing I ate that was not vegan was pizza. I had, pizza used to be my favorite food. Probably still is my favorite food, and I could taste it. Like I could go and have a slice of Joe's Pizza, which is my favorite spot in the village. I can
I
have it
think
right
that
now.
is that Jesse's favorite too, because that sounds very familiar. I think I've had this conversation with him.
Yeah, it's tough when a pie of Joe's shows up backstage after your gig and you can't eat it, or
Yeah.
I won't eat it. Uh, but I have it. It's stored away up in my
Yeah,
brain.
yeah.
Literally, I can have a pie like that. I just had a pie as we were speaking. I
Yeah, yeah.
had a pie. But yeah, that was the last non-plant based meal that I ate. I had a slice of Joe's. I had it on my 40th birthday. I'll be 44 in April.
Okay.
Uh, it's been a bit of time since
Yeah.
I had it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was more the health decision than anything else.
You know, it started with health, and then it expanded from there. Um, I used to have really high cholesterol. It kind of runs in my family.
Oh, okay.
And back then, the doctors were like, you should cut out red meat. So, okay, let me cut out red meat. But then you find out that the other stuff kind of still affects cholesterol. So it started there, but when I became more aware of factory farming, and then
Mm.
the environmental toll of raising animals for food, I became an all-encompassing vegan, and
Yeah.
just for animal rights and for the sake of the environment and sustainability, because we got one planet, and we can't keep growing animals for food. It's just not going to work. I don't want to
Yeah.
start. I mean, we're on a music
No,
podcast, but
no, no. I definitely like going into different areas. I was just going to
yeah.
ask, what is your thoughts on lab grown meat? That's a new
Uh,
thing.
yeah, I would say if you have a craving for meat and you could get it in a lab rather than killing an innocent animal for it, I say go for it.
Yeah.
I have Beyond Burgers in my fridge.
Yeah.
I own Beyond stock. I think it's a good investment. I believe in that stuff as far as changing the way we how we get our food. You know,
Mm.
it's something that you don't think about a lot until you start to eat this way. You don't start to think about where everything on your plate came from. And once I did, that's what sort of influences where and how you eat.
Yeah.
So yeah, sure, go get a lab grown steak instead of you know slitting the animal's throat to go get it.
I
Why
guess.
not? You know,
Yeah. I'm intrigued. It's a bit bizarre that it's amazing what we can do and what we can't seem to do for the world. I never thought growing, you know, meat in a lab was going to be a thing. I don't know how anyone thought that could be a thing. But I'm definitely interested in seeing what it's like.
really, I mean, certain things the less and the more time that goes by, I can't remember. I can't tell you. I can tell you the last steak I had. I know where I had it, but but it's been so long to where uh, yeah, I don't know how I would feel with a lab grown steak in front of me, if I would even want it at this point.
Right, right. Well, it makes sense. If hey, I give you credit. If you're on that path, that's good for you. I have my issues with with food that I haven't. I feel like I'm going to eventually point myself, paint myself into a corner where I'm going to have to change things, or else something's going to happen. But I'm trying to avoid doing that. So it's something I respect. My son has, over the years, he threw us for a curve as he was growing up, because he became vegetarian in high school for a brief period of time. And like, we just went to the store.
Yeah, I bet. I know, right? When you have kids, it's like, wait a minute, I got to cook for a vegetarian kid now. How am I going to do this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
see.
no, it was just like, but I get it. I get the need for it. I respect it a hell of a lot more than I used to, quite honestly, because the food world is such an open place, and you realize how many cultures, do already have a mostly, meat free lifestyle. So it's not like unheard of. It's unheard of for Americans, for the most
Very much
part.
so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We live off the cow here, don't we? I mean, the
yeah,
dairy and the beef here, and the chicken. Uh,
yeah,
right? I mean, people can't imagine life without it. But
yeah.
It's possible. It's
Yeah, yeah,
possible. It's much simpler, and yeah, it feels. I just feel better eating
yeah,
eating the way I do. You know,
yeah.
it's taken a while to get here,
It,
but
it's got it's a whole thing. It's a major lifestyle change. So yeah, I get it.
it is. It becomes less about diet and more about lifestyle, and that's when it's becomes easy
Yeah,
because it's not. I'm not leaving this thing off my plate just because I don't like the way it tastes or I won't eat it. It's like, oh, there's all these other things that affect that decision, um, that make it so easy to just not eat certain food and want to
yeah.
eat other things, you know. So yeah, it's wow. That's a can of worms. We can.
No, no. I like when things go off on a different tangent. Well, one final question, and then I'll let you go. You guys don't you have some tour dates next year for the spring, right? Overseas.
Uh, we have some stuff. I don't think it's been announced or put on sale yet, but we are supposed
Right.
to hit parts of Europe that we haven't
Okay.
hit yet. Uh, Jesse and Derek will be on Brian Fallon's tour. Unfortunately, that's not a full band
Okay.
run. This year, though, we do have a holiday show coming up at
Right.
Ballroom, which is a benefit show as well for
For
Howie.
Howie.
Yeah,
Yeah, Howie
um,
Pyro.
we're gonna play in Woodstock next weekend at the Colony, which is a really cool spot up there. Um, but yeah, that's it for the Jesse stuff this year. Next year, there are some things being planned for the West Coast. Um, it's so early
Yeah, yeah.
to say, as far as yeah the Jesse dates go. So yeah, Jesse and Derek will be starting to do a lot of a duo stuff when they go out with Brian, and I'll be moving over to play with my friend Gabe, who I mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
uh, a little bit next summer. But I don't know. Yeah, things are going to pop up on the tour page very shortly.
Gotcha.
It's just not
Okay.
really confirmed just yet. Yeah.
Gotcha. No, not a problem. Well, Randy, I appreciate you taking the time today. We'll have all the links up. We'll have, links up for Jesse as well. So that everybody can keep an eye on, when the tour is happening. And look forward to seeing your website get updated and seeing you out on the road.
Me too. Yeah, we should definitely hopefully be making it to Chicago as well. That area.
Awesome.
I know.
Yeah, I know he always loves playing in Chicago. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you very much again for your time, Randy. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Okay.
My pleasure, Brett. Yeah, you too.
All right. Take care.
Take.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.